أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We have been looking at the Tafsir of Suratu r-Rahman, Surah number 55 of the Qur'an. Until yesterday we looked at first 13 ayat, ending with the famous words فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, which is repeated 31 times in this surah. This is a surah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the blessings that He has given to us, beginning with the issue of the divine guidance and the creation of human beings, as well as the bayan, the intellectual capacity that He has given to us, the sun and the moon, the herbs, the trees, the sky and the three mizans that He talked about, and the earth and the fruits and dates, as well as grains and vegetables that we discussed the ayat yesterday. To continue with that, we have two ayat again for this evening. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the creation of the human being. Although in the beginning He says, r-Rahman, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, r-Rahman allama al-Qur'an, khalaqa al-insan. That He talked about teaching of the Qur'an and creation of the insan. But now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes into more kind of a detail as far as the origin of the creation of insan. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ كَالْفَخَّارِ. He created man from a dry clay. That's the meaning of salsal. Kal-fakhar means similar to the container, a water container which is made by earth. Of course, here we are not that much familiar with that unless you use it for putting plants in it. That's probably the most common usage that we have in this part of the world. The term al-insan, basically this refers to all human beings. But then, Adam is the name of the first insan. All, humans are known as insan, but not all insan are known as Adam. Adam is the name of the first insan and the first human being. We are called Adami, not Adam. Means we are from Adam. Or we could be called Banu Adam, as the children of Adam. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Qur'an, when He talks about the creation of human beings, you will see ayat deal with this issue in different ways. One is the process of the creation of Adam as the first human being. And the other is, you will see many, many verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about creations of human beings after Adam. We know that process. There are ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your beginning was from the nutfa, sperm drop, and gradually ayat which describe different stages of development of a child in the embryo till the end. But this ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about creation of insan from the earth, it refers not to all but to the first insan, and that is Adam alayhi salam. In Qur'an, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the creation of Adam, He basically uses different terms. Salsal is the dry clay. In other ayat, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the term turab. Inna mathala Isa inda Allah ka mathali Adam khalaqahu min turab thumma qala lahu kun fayakun. In Surah Al-Imran, ayat 59, and many other ayat. The word turab or the word at-teen. For example, where He says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم مِّن طِينٍ. Teen and turab mean one and the same. Another term that we see in the Qur'an, especially when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word turab, he sometimes explains it further. Or even teen, for example. Lazib. Lazib means a earth or a clay which is sticky. Salsal, dry clay. And salsal is then further explained in another ayat of Qur'an, Surah Hijr, ayat number 33, where Allah says, min salsalin min hama'in masnoon. Hama'in masnoon basically is referring to old clay or dark clay. And basically, if you gather, earth, which is, not compacted, if you put water in it, you will see it becomes dark in color. And so there are different ways of looking of the same thing, and people have translated in different ways. Sometimes they would translate it as aged clay or dark clay or wet clay, or sometimes sticky and spongy clay. And that is the origin of the human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created Adam from the turab and the teen. Salawat man akbar. We had to rush this evening, but we'll try to cover as much as I have prepared. This next ayat, وَخَلَقَ الْجَنَّ مِنْ مَارِجٍ مِنْ نَارٍ. The ayat, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. رَبِّكُمَا refers to dual. And that referred to, as we discussed, to insan and jinn, human beings and jinn. This is where we see that in ayat number 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the creation of Adam from turab. Then he talks about وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the jinn مِنْ مَارِجٍ مِنْ نَارٍ, from a variety or moving or colorful flame from the fire. Now the word marriage means something which is not stable. So if you look at fire, the flame is not stable, it's always moving. So that would be one way of looking at it. Another is colorful flames, because if you look at the flames, they are not only one color. You will see yellow and blue and what else there? White is there, and even red, of course. And so it's different, it's same thing, but you're looking at it from different angles, and you would explain it in different ways. The main thing is that human beings have been created from the earth, whereas jinn have been created from fire. And one of the other differences is that jinn are invisible, whereas human beings are visible. They can see us, we cannot see them. Of course, there's a problem with it, but that's the reality. They coexist with us on the same planet. This is the same abode from ins and jinn. Actually, even the term ins and jinn, one of the meanings of that in Arabic language, ins means something which is visible, and jinn means something which is invisible. So even the names reflect this difference, that insan is a visible being, whereas jinn is a invisible being as far as we are concerned. The other difference between insan and jinn is the issue of the power. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given certain powers to jinnat, which is more than what we have. And one of the example, of course, in Surah Naml is the story of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the jinnat subservient to him. They were in his service. They were his servants, actually. The story of Bilqis, when he had invited her to come and visit his kingdom in Jerusalem. At that time, Sulaiman said, I would like her throne to be brought here before she reaches here. And one of the jinn, in Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قال إفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. That, O Sulaiman, I can bring her throne to you before you even get up from your own throne here. That was a jinn, min al-jinn, ifritun min al-jinn. He is the one, he had that power. Of course, there was another wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala among ins. Not all human beings have that power, but those who are awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, the power that Allah has given to them is even more than the power that the jinn would have. And for he was the one who said that, Sulaiman, I can bring it to you before even you blink your eyes. And that's where it was right there after he finished saying that, the throne of Bilqis was already there. So that difference is of course there between the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and other creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of these two ayat again, this statement from Suratu r-Rahman is being repeated. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So what of your Lord's bounties will you both deny? And the response from us is لَا بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ آلَائِكَ رَبِّي أُكَذِّبْ. That, O Allah, I do not deny any of your ni'mat and blessings. Salawat upon the Akbar. The ayat number 14, which talked about the creation of Adam from earth. Bin salsalin kal fakhar. Let me just take this opportunity to talk very briefly, and I'll try to make it simple and very brief, on this whole issue of what is our perspective on the issue of the theory of evolution. Our children go to school, in high school, and of course in the universities. They hear about it, they are taught about it. And what is our take on this issue? And I'm trying to just, summarize issues here. Number one, we have to realize that the theory of evolution, that living things evolve from one another gradually, from one cell, which gradually evolved into all, all the living things are connected to one another in that way. And so it's a evolutionary process of existence. Number one, this is a theory. And the scientists consider it to be the best explanation for the complexity and the diversity of life on this planet. So this is the best way of explaining how things have evolved and emerged from one another. From our perspective, this is a theory which talks about the process of creation. Science, technically speaking, is not the arena of talking about the Creator. You can disagree or have a debate about it with me. We can talk about it later on. But science is not the subject which deals with the origin of creation or the Creator. It only talks about what is there and how things function and how things work. If somebody is able to explain to you everything about the mechanics and the function of a car, that's one thing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he knows or he is saying anything about the manufacturer or builder of that car. So science is not really in the arena. If you look at some of the scientists even now in America, where there is a dispute between what is known as the theory of evolution and the intelligent design. This is a Christian perspective about, Allah is the one who designed everything. Even those who are on this side of science and who reject this concept, they say, on the scientific level, there is nothing. But if you ask me on a philosophical level, yes, I agree with that. So there is a difference between what is discussed in science and what is discussed in philosophy. This whole issue of the creation and the origin of creation is the topic for philosophy and not the topic for science. Salawat upon the Akbar. It's more a debate between the Christians because they believe in the Bible and the, 6-day creation theory which is there in the first book, the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. And so they basically go literally with that, and they say anything against that, we don't agree with it. They believe the world was created in 6 days, and the 7th day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rested, and that's how we have Sunday, off. That's the Lord's, rest day, and that's why we get that opportunity. And so it's a biblical concept of looking at things, but from the Quranic point of view, we don't see much of a problem between the scientific perspective and the Islamic perspective, of course in a modified process. And let me explain what I mean by that. When it comes to the theory of evolution, number one, this whole business of human beings evolving from apes and monkeys, that's not Islamic. No, we are greater than that. We consider ourselves to be ashraf al-makhluqat. We did not evolve from apes and monkeys. That's not something which is acceptable by prominent scholars like Allama Tabatabai and even Sayyid Murtada Mutahiri. Especially they have discussed on this issue because there were some Muslim scholars, they even still are now, among the Shias and Sunnis alike, especially the Muslim scientists who sometimes have tried to read the theory of evolution into the Qur'an. Because I said this is the common theory, so let us see if Qur'an can be reconciled with that theory, which is prevailing these days. And they looked at the process where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the creation of human beings, that I created you from a sperm drop, and then gradually, the gradual process. But that is about the development of the embryo in the womb of the mother. It's not talking about this theory of evolution that things, in hundreds of thousands of years evolve gradually, to become a human being at the end. And so that is not something which we believe in. And even I think just 2-3 years ago in 2009, there was an interesting report by a group of anthropologists who were working in Ethiopia, where they discovered 4 million years old fossil. And that discovery, which was published in the Science Journal of October 2009, basically they are saying that what we have discovered there in Ethiopia now, and these are the fossils and remains of the chimps and gorillas, what they are saying that this whole issue of the missing link, where there was apes and then we came through later on, they say that it seems they reversed the whole process. Okay, according to this discovery, we evolved from this old idea that we evolved from a chimpanzee is totally incorrect. It's more proper to say that the chimpanzees evolved from us. Now that's also a problem. Other than some examples, Qur'an talks about some nations in the past who committed sins, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them and turned them into qiradatan, apes and khinzir and pigs. But remember, that was a punishment for those individuals only. Don't blame these monkeys and apes who are out there. They are not generation or descendants of those. They were human beings who were turned into monkeys, and then they very quickly died after that. And so, we wouldn't even accept this conclusion, but this is just an example that what we have there is a theory. And this attempt of some of the scholars that whatever is prevailing and current view on science, they would like to always fit the Qur'an according to that, this is not the right way to look like the Qur'an. Because maybe 40 years from now, the prevailing theory of science would be something else. So again, you will go back and study the Qur'an again to fit the Qur'an according to the current view. No. Qur'an is the mizan for us. Qur'an is the criteria of what is haq and what is batil. Salawat. Actually, we can take this theory of evolution and reverse it and use it for our benefit, minus this monkey business. And that we wouldn't agree with that. But if the concept is that every living thing has evolved from one single cell at the end, what does that prove? That proves that the designer of this system of evolution was one. So you can reverse this whole idea, this theory, and change it into a proof for one of the extra proof that we will have for the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if every living thing can be brought back to one cell, it means, there is unity in the creation. And when there is unity in the creation, there is unity in the creator also. Salawat. Let me go back to this first ayat that we looked at. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ كَالْفَخَّارِ. Just a point of reflection. We are being reminded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our origin is from turab. It is from teen. It is from the earth. And the lesson that we have to learn from it is that don't be arrogant. Interestingly, the salsal, the dry clay, has been explained as kal fakhar, the earth container, earthen container, fakhar, from fakhr. Fakhar means somebody who does fakhr quite a lot. And the water container made from earth is known as fakhar because when it is almost empty or just a little bit of water, when you shake it, you will see it makes noise. So fakhr means somebody who makes a lot of noise, but there is no substance inside. So even the meaning of fakhar and fakhr and this connection is actually indirect message to us. Don't be arrogant. Remember your origin. You are nothing but, a creation made from dust. And always remember that the first sin in the Qur'an that we see is from Iblis, and the basis of that was arrogance. Where he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ, I am better than Adam, خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَار وَخَلَقْتُهُ مِن طِينٍ. You created me from fire, whereas you created him from dust. And I am superior to him. This is where we have to realize that, it doesn't really mean anything where we are from. The main thing we have to remember is that we are the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sajda in namaz is actually a physical reminder of our humility in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sajda can become a lesson to get rid of this takabbur and fakhr that we would have on a wrong basis if we do sajda on turbat. This is where we see that sajda becomes more meaningful to us as a lesson for humility if it is done on the turbat and not if it is done on the carpet. And this is one way of understanding the wisdom of the Shia fiqh about using turbat or mohor for our sajda. A reminder that that's where we are from and that's where we are going to go back to. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.